When it comes to voting, young adults around the country are notorious for apathy, but that norm was shaken up earlier this year by a mass shooting at a school in Florida that quickly gave rise to a student movement. And the call for new steps to prevent gun violence has also been applied to the experience of people growing up in Boston's neighborhoods. We'd like to welcome one of those student activists, the executive director of March for Our Lives Boston, Vikiana Petit-Homme. Thank you very much for being with us, Vikiana.
Thank you.
First of all, tell me, to start with, why did you get involved with this movement?
Yeah, I've been for the last few years working on student advocacy and making sure that youth voice was included in the city of Boston, and I felt like it was very natural to apply it to a situation like gun violence, where a lot of young people in our neighborhoods are dealing with it.
Well, one of the things that you did through your activism earlier this year was that you had a very large march in Boston, and what was your takeaway from it? What did you learn from that event?
I learned that young people are powerful and there's nothing that we can do to stop them. We just need to give them the right environment for them to strive.
Well, you have an election coming up tomorrow, and people might be saying, okay, what does that have to do with gun control? As far as the people running in Massachusetts or things on the ballot, what is the connection?
Well, when it comes to gun sense and passing gun sense legislation, it really comes up to our elected officials. And unfortunately, a lot of them are bought out by the NRA and special interest groups. While most candidates in Massachusetts do not receive NRA donations, we do have people like Jeff Deal, who is NRA sponsored, going up against Elizabeth Warren in the Senate race this November. And we have people like Charlie Baker, who endorsed Jeff Deal. So making sure that these people are not only passing laws, these gun sense legislation, but they're actively supporting them. They're not just signing away. Because it doesn't take much to sign a paper, but actually advocating for these laws is what we want.
And down the road, the Senate could be confirming another judge in the Supreme Court. That could make a difference in gun control too, maybe.
Yeah, the people who are in our judicial
branch of government.
Really determine how laws are passed. It determines basically everything. It's a very powerful branch, and we want to make sure those are people who are going to do the right thing.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Vikiana Petit-Homme from March for Our Lives Boston. Vikiana, what about the response that you've been getting from people your own age? They're on the cusp of being able to vote, at least. Are they interested in this election?
Yeah, they're very interested in this election. Actually, today in class, we took a break from our schedule and we were like, okay, make sure you're registered to vote. You get extra credit if you are. Everyone is just talking about tomorrow, and most of us aren't 18 yet, but really excited, and we're excited for those of us who are 18, who will be voting for the first time. So it's definitely something that's up in the air.
What about other issues? Are there other things that young people are concerned about in this election?
I think one thing that we've been pushing is that while March for Our Lives Boston focuses primarily on gun violence prevention, there are many issues that affect young people, such as the fact that a young man, Donye Jones, was lynched recently. And so we're thinking about things like that. We're thinking about racial justice, economic inequity. We're thinking about education. We're thinking about everything that affects us, because we are the future, but we're also the now.
Well, there are people who still look down at younger voters and activists, and I know not long after you were on the show, I guess a gun rights advocate said, what do young people like you know about guns? Who are you to tell us what we should do as far as gun safety?
I think what we need to see is that there is a pattern of violence in our country, and the way that we've been treating it is like we haven't been treating it. We're not asking for you to throw away all your guns. We're just asking to put up precautionary measures to make sure that people who shouldn't have guns don't have guns, because obviously that's not something that's present in our country right now. What
are your impressions about the way that elected officials have been responding to your group so far? What have you seen from them?
Mixed responses. Elected officials in Massachusetts have been supportive, but the way that we see that is you need to actually do things to support us, not just say, oh, I'm very proud of you, but actually take the steps to work with us and pass legislation and enact policies that will benefit the youth of this country and of the city. It takes way more than just words. And for those who don't support us, well, we know that November 6th is coming. We know that people are listening. And we know that they'll vote the right way.
What about the power of survivors? Because whether you're from Parkland, Florida, or if you live down the street from someplace in Boston where there was a shooting, you're a survivor. What about the power of them to get people to just even pay attention?
It's extremely powerful because us just spouting statistics, that doesn't get people to change their minds, that doesn't get people to listen, but hearing a person's memories, a person's pain, that's what catches people's attention.
Well, we should mention, you've got the election tomorrow, and beyond tomorrow, there's some other things you want people to get tuned into. So what do you have in mind?
Yeah, I'm very interested into looking into lowering the voting age in Boston and perhaps Massachusetts as a whole state. I think that's the next step to really amplifying the voices of young people.
So why should people be able to vote when they're younger? Let's say as young as 16. How does that make things better?
Well, we're paying taxes, right? Taxation.
Some
with
of
that.
those,
Let's
yes.
go to that old one. Taxation.
I
without
did a little of that when I was
representation.
16 too.
Yes.
Yes.
We're working, and a lot of people like to think, oh, you guys don't know enough. The older generation doesn't know a lot either. It's about us having a say because we are living in the society, we are contributing to the society, and we are being affected by these laws that these politicians are enacting. So we should have a say in that. We should. We are as much as valid in our opinions as any 18-year-old, as any 21-year-old. And I honestly think it's kind of, I just don't think it's makes sense for someone to think I'm 17 now and therefore my opinions are not valid, but the minute I turn 18 they are. It doesn't make sense.
Well, we should mention if people want to get in touch with your organization, you've got some place on the web where they can check that out?
Yeah, so if you want to get more involved with March for Our Lives Boston, you can just go to marchforourslivesboston.com or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at MFOL Boston.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vikiana Petit-Homme from March for Our Lives Boston. In a moment, closing the gap between learning opportunities for middle-skilled jobs. But first, this message.